And welcome to another episode of Stuck in My Mind podcast. I am your host, WIZE. And this episode, I'm excited for this episode. I don't know how you go from a career in the FBI to becoming a midlife comeback coach. So I'm excited for my next guest. And let's bring on Holly Bertone. Hello.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me.
The pleasure's all mine. So you're an author, you're a coach, you're a fellow podcaster. But my question is, how do you go from being up and you were high ranking in the FBI to what you're doing now?
Yeah, that is such a great question because I know the two kind of have seemed to not really connect. But I actually want to answer that question going back to when I was about 10 years old.
Okay.
And when I was a little girl, and it's all going to make sense, I promise. When I was a little girl, one of my favorite things to do, we had this huge dining room table, and I love to put jigsaw puzzles together. But, the 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzles weren't challenging enough. So I would get 3 different ones. I would dump them all out on the dining room table. I'd mix them up, and then I'd put them together. And that's just how my brain works. And when I was brought in at the FBI, it was post 9/11. And so this was back when, if you remember, the internet was still very new.
Yeah.
The agencies weren't talking to each other. The agencies weren't talking to themselves within themselves, and they weren't talking, to each other. So the 9/11 Commission report came out. The WMD Commission report came out. And what they brought me in as a project manager. So I wasn't an agent. I was a project manager. Ended up becoming the chief of staff for counterintelligence. But when I started, what had happened was I would go in to look at the disparate pieces of a specific program that weren't connected, that should be connected. And basically, it was just like dumping all of those puzzle pieces out and putting them back together. So I did that, I think, 4 or 5 different times and working for the different programs. And I guess they liked what I did. So they went to Congress, opened up the billet for me, and brought me in as a GS-15 chief of staff for counterintelligence program management office, where I ran data analytics. So again, looking at all of the pieces, looking at the past, the threats and the past, and looking at all of the analytics, and then using that to predict trends. So it's just, again, how my brain works. It just fires me up every single day. And in 2017, no, I'm sorry. Before that, 2010, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Okay.
And it was on my 39th birthday. So I went through surgery, chemo, radiation. And then I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease 1 year later. And that turned into quite a few years of debilitating chronic fatigue. And my health actually got so bad that I could barely get out of bed. So working was not an option, and was pretty much forced to resign. So that got me spiraling into just marinating in my own misery, because working for the FBI was a childhood dream. It was my life, my career, everything. Like my entire identity was wrapped around being successful and working there. And that just was absolutely shattering for me. I was married at the time, and I had a young stepson. And I was also barely able to take care of them as a wife and as a mother. And that put me in a very dark place. So I decided one day, just, I'm not okay with this. And I decided to figure out, like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to get better. And at that point, I only thought maybe, 15%, 10%, 20%. Like, I had my sights very low, right? Like, if I can just function, I'm good to go. So I became a certified holistic health coach for my own healing. And what I found was that the traditional, the nutrition, the lifestyle factors only got me so far, and I plateaued. And it wasn't until I really dug into the mindset component that I realized there's a huge missing piece here. And this goes back to the identity level. And is that you are who you are. Like Albert Einstein says everything's created twice. So it's first created in our mind and then it manifests physically. So, and I like to share, about a comeback story. I love talking about that. But from the place that I was at, right, creating that comeback with my health, I needed to have a different identity, right? I couldn't come back from that place of all of those disempowering beliefs. And then what happened was once I was able to pretty much heal myself and I actually started coaching other women. And what I realized is there is a common theme. And I work specifically with midlife women, but if you're not in that demographic, I want you to listen because we're going to unpack some really cool stuff today. I know we are. But what I found is that we hit this like 40s and 50s and something happens. It's, and I think this is also where the midlife crisis comes in, but we hit this almost like this plateau. Like we get to a place where our careers are going really, really well, but we've kind of hit the ceiling. And maybe our marriage is great. Maybe it's not great. Maybe we're getting divorced. The kids are getting older. Maybe we're empty nesters, taking care of elderly parents or aging parents. And we're just in this weird space where we've just spent the last 15, 20 years and we've done everything for everyone else, but we haven't focused on ourself and we haven't focused on our health and we've let our health go pretty much. And that's what I started seeing over and over and over again. And even with myself, I bought into everything that I was taught as a health coach. And my health was great, my weight was great, but I was missing that piece, that sparkle, that vibrancy that takes you from like I feel great to actually optimizing your health. And that's when things started to get really turned on because I realized when we're at this age, this is when things start to decline. I mean, I had 4 people in the last 2 weeks reach out to me that they were just friends of mine, reach out that they were diagnosed with breast cancer.
Wow.
And I mean, it's just between, cancer, autoimmune disease, diabetes, heart disease, the more we age, the more we increase our risk for all of this. And I'm realizing that traditional kind of the nutritionists and the traditional health space, they focus on things like weight loss. They don't talk about metabolic health and they don't talk about how to get it to stick. And I was like, yeah, this is where I want to come in and play. So yeah, so it's back to putting those pieces together again.
So me being that because now I'm on I've gone to the doctor and I'm diabetic. I'm diabetic officially, but he's like it's not too late. He said we can get you off these medications, but we have to get you. You got to get the weight off. you need to get the weight off. It has to come off. And recently, I also suffer from sleep apnea. So I haven't had my CPAP machine. I just got it. I just got it on Friday. So I haven't had my CPAP machine in probably 4 months, 3-4 months. And it's a big difference because when I don't have my CPAP machine, I'm drained. I'm nodding off. I'm falling asleep because I'm not getting a proper sleep. And so it's been a big difference Friday from since I got my machine through today and everything compared to months ago where I was just drained. I was just tired, just couldn't do anything. And so now I'm feeling like, all right, now that I'm getting my rest and I'm sleeping and then today I was able to help move my daughter. She move some couches pick up some couches and move them around and take them to her house and everything. And I got some exercise doing that today. But I don't think a couple of months ago I would have been able to do it.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. And I really don't. I want to go a more holistic route, rather find things to help me naturally than stay on medication and be on pills the rest of my life. That's not something I dream of.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I never talk about it from the place of cure. I just talk about it from a place of healing because healing is a spectrum. Healing's the horizon,
Yeah,
right? Healing is not just physically, but it's emotionally, it's mentally, it's spiritually, it's the whole package.
yeah, it is. So, so what are the core principles of your unique healing methodology?
Oh my goodness. This is, I like to talk about it from the perspective of the Rocky framework.
Okay,
And so
when you
I
say
think
Rocky, you mean Rocky Balboa?
I am talking Rocky Balboa, the original circa 1976, 15 rounds with Apollo Creed. And because I think, and again, I work mostly with in midlife, but we get to a certain age and it's almost like going 15 rounds with Apollo Creed because of all of those things that I talked about. The all these competing priorities with career, spouse, kids, aging parents, community stuff, like all of the stuff. It's just sucking our energy away from us because we look at all of these external things and we look to them to give us this validation instead of looking from within. And so I love the framework of, the Rocky inspired framework because number one, this age range is like going 15 rounds with Apollo Creed. But here's an important thing to remember is that Rocky actually lost that fight with Apollo Creed, but no one would call Rocky a failure.
No, nobody expected
He,
him to be there, first of all, and no one expected him to last as long as he did.
yeah,
So that's why it wasn't considered a failure, because no one thought he would last a round. First of all, to
right.
go the whole 15 rounds with the heavyweight champion and almost beat the heavyweight champion,
Yes,
you can't.
yes,
That's not, if that's not inspirational, I don't know what is. Because listen, this is someone who no one thought was going to win.
yep,
They underdog. No one. He didn't have a shot. He didn't have a shot. And for him to go out and just will himself, because that's what he did. He worked hard. Rocky worked
yep,
hard. Let's not understand. Let's not
yep.
misunderstand. He did work hard, but his willpower was phenomenal.
It's who he became.
Yeah.
It's who he became. And it's interesting. You talk about willpower, and I'm going to get into the framework here in a second. So you asked that question. But when you think about, like you said, like, hey, I'm ready to, make some changes and I want to do this more naturally. And, I think we get to this place where, whether it's our health or our weight or kind of whatever that is, like, I want to do the thing. And I call this base camp cycle because it's a mountain to climb,
Mhm.
and depending on, kind of where you are, like some mountains are bigger than others. And you get that excitement, and that excitement's going to last a couple weeks because like it's guttural, right? It starts in your gut and you're like, yeah, I'm going to do this. But that excitement lasts 2 weeks because then the thing gets hard. And then the thing gets hard, you're going to rely on willpower. Willpower is going to get you about one more week. And then an obstacle happens. I'm talking, it's a rainy day. You're running a little late. You get a fight with your spouse. Like, I'm not talking big, I'm talking small, right?
Mhm.
You get stuck in traffic and you're like, you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to start on Monday. And then Monday never happens. So instead of climbing that mountain, you're right back at base camp cycle. And the statistics show that between 92 and 95% of all diets fail. And it's because we're in this base camp cycle, and it's because the system is set up for us to fail. They only focus on the doing. So that's why I love this framework, because the very first step that I take my clients through is the R, and that is rear view mirror. And that is getting right with your past, because we have these stories, these limiting beliefs that we've been carrying around. We were told we were the pretty one, or the handsome one, or the smart one, or the stupid one, or the class clown, or the jock, or, all of these stories, or the good for nothing one. And we've got these stories from our past that we're hanging on to. So now we've got our career and our family and our health. And it's like we're validating, right, these stories. And when I say forgiveness, I'm not talking about blame or shame. And I'm not talking about if something happened to you to let that person off the hook. I am talking about that forgiveness within. I am talking about breaking that tether that you're attached to. Like, we can't go back in our DeLorean and just change the past, but we can make peace with it and we can release it. And that step right there is absolutely vital. And that's what we do first. So we don't even talk about diet. We don't talk about nutrition. We don't talk about exercise. What we talk about is healing from the past first. And then O is own your ship. I like to say ship with a P, like a boat. And this is personal responsibility. And I want to share a story because I think this is an important way to really illustrate this. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I weighed 110 pounds. I was a competitive athlete. I was a mountain bike racer. So I would stand on a podium and get a medal around my neck. And I thought that because I was thin and athletic, that I was the epitome of health. So at that first appointment, I'm trying to figure out, like, how did this even happen? I was 39 years old and I thought that breast cancer was just for old women. So I'm like, how did this even happen? And the doctor, she put her hand on my knee. You want to know what she told me? She said, lightning struck. And I needed to hear that because it was a very dark moment in my life. And it's a whole different conversation to talk about the conversations that doctors need to have with their patients. But it was one of the worst things that she could have ever said, because it took all of the responsibility away from me and it just placed this disease on this random act. So because I thought that, oh, lightning struck and, I'm an athlete and I'm thin, that means lightning struck. In my head, I totally detached from taking any responsibility. But in reality, I was eating about a 95% ultra processed food diet. I was living a stress-filled, adrenaline junkie lifestyle. 6 cans of Coca-Cola a day, right? Like it, and I mean, the list is long. If I go back, the list is long, right? I was not healthy. And when I realized that good health is not the absence of disease. And disease doesn't just happen. It happens over time as the end stage of inflammation. And the majority of the big ones that we just talked about, the cancer, autoimmune disease, heart disease, and diabetes, a lot of them have lifestyle factors that we have control over. We have agency over. And I'm not talking about 100% prevention. I can't guarantee that for everyone. But there's a lot of lifestyle factors that we can implement to help minimize our risk. And that's what responsibility is. And that was one of the hardest things that I had to do, was to look myself in the mirror and say, Holly, these things that you're doing are not good for your health. Health is not the number between your 2 big toes. There's a lot more to health than this. And I look at health as a holistic health coach from a holistic perspective. And I use the acronym MACHINE. So M is your meaning and purpose. A, your associates, your social and spiritual connections. C, this is your MAC. Yeah, this is your calm, your inner stillness. H, hibernation. That's your sleep. I had to be creative. I is your ingredients, your nutrition. N is nature, time in nature, time outside. We spend about 97% of our day inside. We do not get outside. We need to get outside in the sunshine, in the fresh air, in nature. And then E is, of course, exercise. So when I started looking at this from a holistic perspective, realizing there's a lot of lifestyle factors that I have control over every
Yeah.
single day. Yeah. So that's so RO. So C is create your future self. And this is back to what I was talking about, as we get into our 40s and 50s, everyone's like, I want to lose, 20 pounds in 2 weeks or whatever. And we go after that quick fix. But we forget about all of these other lifestyle factors that I just talked about. Like, what is life going to look like when we're 60, when we're 70, when we're 80, when we're 90, if we make it that long? And this is a hard one, right? Because it's creating that future self. Like if you are 50 years old and you live to be, I think I did the math, like 85. All right. So everyone's like, I hate squats. Well, guess what? If you're 50 years old and you live to be 85, you're going to do 100,000 squats over the course of your lifetime just by going to the bathroom, up and down on the toilet, right? Guys, not as many times as women. But you can hate squats all you want. But this is one of the reasons why people have to go into assisted living. They can't get off the toilet, right? So, I mean, and I'm talking, this is bare bone basics. Like, do you want to be able to, bring in your groceries? Do you want to be able to get down on the ground and play with your grandkids? Do you want to be able to go on family trips and family vacations? Or do you want to be stuck at home because you can't really get around? So we need to have, and the problem that I see is that there's the fires in front of us on a daily basis are so big. They are overwhelming. And it is so hard to just say, you know what, I got to put out this fire today. I don't even have time to think about 10, 15, 20 years from now. I'm going to get to that when it happens. But the decisions that we make today are going to impact how we live down the road. So that's C. So K is keep the vision, not the view. And I love this one because, again, back to that percentage, 92 to 95% of all diets fail because they're not created from a place of sustainability, right? They're just drop 20 pounds in 2 weeks or whatever the claim is. So let's start looking at sustainability because here's the thing. The obstacles are going to happen every single day. Rainy day, running late, fight with your spouse. You go down to wash the dishes. Like, I've got a dress on, right? You go down to wash the dishes and that food kind of splashes and just is now your dress is wet and covered in food gook. And you're like, great, I got to go change. These are the things that happen every single day. Life gets lifey, right? And I'm not talking big stuff. I'm talking little stuff. And one of the biggest compliments that I can get from one of my clients is when they come back to me and they're like, oh my goodness, Holly, I had, XYZ happen and it didn't affect, I didn't binge eat. I didn't go back to my comfort food. I just stayed the course. I kept working out. Like I stayed the course. And this is when, back to FBI terms, like you can create tripwires. You can create, so that when these, like if you're having a big day at work, it's a big day. If it's a sales call or a big meeting or something like that, and you got to be on your game, you can plan, right? But we're just running. We're running so fast. We don't have any space in our lives to take that time and to plan for those things so that when it happens, you can stay the course and you don't get sucked back into those old habits. So that is where sustainability is key. So R, rear view mirror. O, own your ship. C, create your future self. K, keep the vision, not the view. And then Y is really the hero's journey. That's coming back home to you. That's old school, Wizard of Oz. You're like, oh, I've had it inside of me all along, right? And I like to talk about this kind of from the concept of an 80s movie montage. Like you go through, remember the movies in the 80s, they always had that like music and, they kind of, that sweat and that grimace and that determination. And they come out and they are ready to face their challenge. And this is really what it's all about. But I really want to challenge you. You're listening. I really want to challenge you. It's not just about you becoming your best version of you. This is the ripple effect. This is you being the leader in your life at work, at home, and in your community. This is you making positive changes so that other people can, not have to justify why, oh, well, I don't want to eat dessert tonight because, I'm on this diet. No, I mean, we need to celebrate each other's choices and be able to create environments to help others achieve healthier lifestyles without that kind of judgment, whether it's real or perceived.
Yeah. So, so what are some of the common issues that you see in what are some of the common issues you see women are having right now that they need a lot of coaching in?
Yeah. And I think, it usually happens with some kind of trigger. And when I say milestone birthday, it's usually the one that ends in 9 or the one that ends in 4, not the ones that end in 5 or 0. So they hit, like 39 or 49 or, 54, right? And they're coming up on a milestone birthday, or they're coming up on a class reunion, or they have some kind of, trigger like, oh, their kids getting married or their kids graduating from high school or college or something like that. So
Okay.
there's some kind of trigger that's like, ooh, or a friend maybe dies at an early age and they're like, ooh, reevaluating their health, So I think after we get to that trigger, it's really being in that environment where they have given everything for everyone else. And I think part of it is when we're in our 20s and 30s, we are taught to chase the dream. We have to go get the perfect spouse, to go get the perfect career, to go buy the big house and have the kids, right? And we chase after all of this. And then, maybe by the time we're 40 or so, like we've achieved a good piece of it. But now what I see is that all of these things that society told us would make us happy are draining our energy.
Okay.
And we blame the spouse, the kids, the career. We blame them because it's their fault that we're giving so much of ourselves to them.
That
Right?
would be the easiest target to basically
Yeah.
put the blame on. If you simply, especially if you don't want to blame yourself, if you don't want to
Yeah.
put the onus on you, like it's really technically your fault that you're in the situation that you're in. It's no
Yeah.
one else's fault. There's things like for me, it was I I need to exercise. I needed to go out and I just didn't do it. And look now. But I'm learning. I actually purchased a treadmill. I got because I know right now the way I feel, I can't see myself going to a gym. So I said, What? Let me give me the treadmill. Start at home. Start getting myself to a point where I feel like, all right, now I'm ready to go to the gym, and because honestly, I just don't feel comfortable in my own body.
Yeah.
And I'm honest with myself. I know I don't feel comfortable in public or wanting to be in the gym. And no, so I started, got the treadmill to get and started. That was my first step.
And that's a common theme is I just don't feel comfortable in my body. You're not alone in that. I hear this over and over and over again. And it's, so often it's I just want to be back like my old self again. But No, we want to better self. Like we want to rock, like own this age and rock this age and, like become that best version of ourselves, not go back to the old ways,
Yeah,
right?
no, no, it's not even going back to the old ways. It's rediscovering who I am now. Now that I'll be next year, I turn 49. I'm almost to the 50, and so
Yeah. So, that milestone.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like, all right, this I'm not trying to go back to how I was 10, 15 years ago when I was much. I was younger. I had more energy. Like life was different. Life happened. Like
Yeah.
life kept what was it? Life keeps on lifing.
Life keeps lifing. Yes.
Yeah. So so of course you want to be new, not go back to this is a new you. This is a much older you, different cells now, it's a different you. So you
Yeah.
can't go back to the old you. You just gotta look at it. This is the new and improved.
And, it's interesting. There's a lot of research out now that's talking about movement throughout the day and how important that is. There was actually studies that looked at individuals who, did like a full exercise routine for like an hour in the morning, but then they sat at their desk all day. They, commuted to work and sat at their desk all day, came home, and watched TV at night. So they did an hour of exercise in the morning, but the entire day was sedentary. And what they're showing is that it's actually more beneficial to move all throughout the day
Mm.
versus just focusing on that workout. And I think too, especially for people who, like might be getting started, getting back into the workout or, have such busy lives, like where am I going to fit working out? It's like, and I used to start when I would go to the bathroom, I would, finish or whatever, come back out, and I would do some type of calisthenics. So when I was starting over, like I was, again, this is going from being a competitive athlete to hitting rock bottom with my health. And when I started over, I mean, I'm talking, it was 30 seconds at a time. It was not anything to brag about. But every time I went to the bathroom, that was my commitment that I would come back out and I would maybe do some dumbbells or, do some wall push-ups or, do some squats or, do some jumping jacks or something like that. And, but it was movement throughout the day. Now this was years ago. I didn't even know this. This was just like, this is all I can do. They're actually called snacks, like exercise snacks, right? Like you fit them in throughout the day. But now the research is really showing is that movement throughout the day is really, really critical.
Okay. So can you explain the concept of a comeback story and why it's important?
Yeah. So, and I know we've been kind of talking about this, but, I really think, and back to kind of what we were talking about too, with, where people are at when they're at a place where, it doesn't have to be some kind of big event or adversity. It's just we're in that place where, my spouse is really annoying. I've hit this ceiling with my career. Like I'm not going any further and I'm super stressed out because I'm in a, you know, important position, but I'm super stressed out. My kids are getting older. We're going a million miles an hour and I don't have any time for myself. And I've given everything that I have to my spouse, my career, my kids, my everything, right? And I don't have anything left. And that's kind of how I view the comeback. It's not like some big event or adversity.
Yeah.
It's just losing ourselves over the years, just slowly day by day. And all of these things that we were told would make us happy now officially drain us. And then what happens? We at night, we sit on the couch, we watch, TV or Netflix or whatever,
Yeah.
and we're on our phone and or on our laptop doing work, right? Like it doesn't stop. We don't have an off button. And really what this comeback is what if you have all these things that you wanted that you said would make you happy, but are now draining you? What if we could just take that coin and just flip it over? So instead of all of this draining you, it's now giving your energy back. You're happier in your marriage, you're happier, you're more fulfilled in your career, or maybe you're going on your own and starting a new venture, but you have that purpose and fulfillment in your life. And
Mhm.
that's when that coin gets the same exact coin, the same exact life, the same exact things, right? But we do the whole identity piece in your brain. We look at it from a neuroplasticity perspective, and basically becoming that new version of
Mhm.
you at a
Mhm.
cellular level. So now, and this isn't just like, oh, fill your cup, mumbo jumbo. Like, this is real, true, authentic change from within. And when you do this, when you go through this process, when you create your comeback, you still have all of these things in your life, but they're now making you a lot happier, and they're giving you energy
Mhm.
rather than draining it.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Um, we touched on that. Like a lot of my questions you touched on. Um, so again, what? Hold on. So, how do you stay motivated and maintain your health and performance? Being that you're you're a best-selling author, you're a coach, you're a mom, you're you're a podcaster. You have a podcast, and that's not easy. That's some time and to get to doing that. How do you keep yourself motivated and going?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. And I really think coaches need to be held to a higher standard because we hold space for our students. And, and I say that very specifically for a reason. So for example, one of the best practices that I do is when I wake up, the very first thing I do is I start my day in silence. And then I move into prayer, meditation, and gratitudes. So it's anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes before I even get out of bed because that is my go to. I don't,
Okay,
I almost
all
thought I
right.
was going to sneeze. Sorry, I was going to sneeze. Yeah, I don't jump on my phone. I go into meditation because I really want to make sure that that I'm coming into my day in the clearest capacity, right? In the best state possible so that no matter what happens, like any of the obstacles, I'm like, okay, whatever, we're good to go. And, I can just roll with the punches. Cause yeah, I mean, my day between coaching calls and, podcast interviews and, all regular work and everything like that, like it gets pretty busy. I take an hour for lunch every single day. I'm either in meditation, I'm in the quiet, or I'm listening to an audiobook, business related. So, something like that. But on the weekends, I spend 2 hours every Sunday in the quiet and in meditation to really just set myself up for success for the week. And it really helps me to, set the stage and to just get into the right mind. And I don't have any of these expectations for my students or my clients. This is just what I do personally. But what I found, and here's the reason for this. What I found is that we are, as a society, we have a lot of noise. We have social media, we have the negative news, we have like all of this stuff going on outside. We're coming into election in the US. Like it is crazy out there. And when you block out the outside noise and you're left with the noise inside, you realize that the noise inside your own head is a lot louder. And that's why I meditate and spend as much quiet time in the quiet as I do to quiet that down. But
Okay.
here's why this helps is that When you're in the quiet, you can hear. And whether you're, religious or God or spirit or universe, right? We have that connection to our higher power. And we hear those next steps, the little breadcrumbs that life gives us
Okay.
all of the time. But when we are, face down in our phone 24/7, we don't have a chance to pick our head up and see what's going, and to really listen to that guidance and that intuition. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. I'll give you a story of this. So, this was, I don't know, a few months ago, and it was a Saturday, and I finished work, and I just really felt compelled to go into meditation because there was a problem that I was working through, and I was really seeking a solution. And I never ever say I want a sign, but this specific time, I was like, I want a sign going into this
Okay.
meditation. So I finished up and I was like, okay. I kind of looked around. I had my puzzle there. I was like, I don't feel like working on my puzzle. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was like, yeah, maybe I'll just watch a little TV or something. So I sat on the couch and I had been watching Charlie's Angels reruns from like the 1970s.
Yeah.
And so I turned the episode on that was just the next in the queue. Within the first 2 minutes, the sign was right there. It was clear as day. It could not have been any more clear if I would have asked it to be. And
Okay.
here's why this is important, is because how often, if you're listening, think about this. When you turn on the TV at night, how many seconds is it before you're picking up your phone and scrolling? And I'm guessing 30 to 60.
Yeah, it's right. It's instantaneous. You just see
Yeah.
people. It's like, dude, you got TV, and it's crazy because um on the weekends I stay away from my desktop. Of course I have my phone on me, but I'm always podcasting, and so I'm like, all right, I don't go into the studio. I don't sit here record nothing. I leave. I don't check my emails. Nothing. I just get away because basically Saturday and Sunday are for me and the wife.
Yeah.
Um, but even when we go out, I gotta tell her, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're not gonna take our phones out. We're gonna keep them in our pockets. We're gonna actually have a conversation while we eat. Because if I'm looking all over the restaurant, phone in one hand, other, like you're sitting here with people, and the days of conversation are gone because everybody's on their phone.
Yeah. Yeah. So we don't hear each other. We don't hear our own voice. We don't hear guide. Like, it is so noisy out there. And that's why, like, again, I hold myself to a higher standard as a coach, but it's really important for me to be in the quiet.
And honestly, one of my goals was to get certified as a life coach, and I did it 2 years ago. And honestly, I can tell you the reason why I haven't proceeded with doing it, and it's because I'm not comfortable with myself. And so, like how you said, you hold yourself to a higher standard. I'm like, I'm I'm not living the life I truly want to live yet. How am I able to go and coach someone this and teach someone how to live their true life when I know I'm lacking? I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing in order. So yeah, it's great that I got certified and all that, but now I need to really start working on myself so that I can go and help other people.
But let me ask you this. If your passion and purpose and calling is to coach people, why are you not? If that is you living your best life and purpose.
That's a good question. That's a really good question. And I guess it's me being afraid of, like, again, judgment, people judging me and saying, like, how can you look a certain way and you're coaching people. Again, it's me. I'm the root of it. it's me. I have to, and I know. And the frustrating part about this is that I know this. I know I'm the cause of what's going on. Now, the question that should be is, what do I do to get out of it? What is it that I need to find within myself to get out of this?
And the other question is, do you think people are going to judge you regardless?
This is true. Yeah. Didn't think about that one. That's a good question. Awesome. So what are some of the daily practices you recommend for maintaining optimal health and mindset?
So back to the machine. So, and I
Yes.
know I kind of glossed over them really quick. So the M is meaning and purpose. And that really is finding your true purpose, yours, not everyone else's, that you do all the things for, your true meaning and purpose. The A is the associates. So that's your spiritual and social connections. And again, you just said, like, we're on our phones like 24/7, meaning we don't have those connections with other people, and we don't have that space and that quiet to connect with our higher power. Very important. The C is the calm, the quiet, the inner peace, right? When your nervous system is regulated, you can do great things. When your nervous system is in a dysregulated state, you're running from fire to fire and panic and making decisions based on comfort or what's going to put out the fire the fastest, not always thinking through from, a more logical perspective. The MACH. H is hibernation. That's sleep. I had to be a little creative in a 7-word acronym. And again, we go to bed, we sit down, and we're scrolling on our phones again, right?
Mm-hmm.
The blue light is horrible for us. It's killing our circadian rhythm. So it's, either getting blue light glasses or, getting off of that phone a couple hours before bedtime, waking up and getting that morning sunlight. And, getting outside, getting that morning sunlight, really working on setting your circadian rhythm and getting good quality sleep. MACH. I is your ingredients, your nutrient richness. Now, the big three, Dr. Casey Means actually came up with this, and she calls it the unholy trinity. Now, the big three have been around. She just came up with the phrase unholy trinity. So the big three to try to minimize are your seed oils, sugar, and the whole grains, because they are the heaviest sprayed with glyphosate, which is basically Roundup, which is basically a poison.
Yeah, poison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the big three from a nutrient perspective. And then, so MACHI, so N is nature. Again, get outside, especially first thing in the morning. Get outside, get some sunshine, spend some time in nature. And then E, your exercise. For midlife women specifically, I say do more strength training, lift heavier things. But then, for everyone, move throughout the day. That's the biggest thing, is to get that movement in throughout the day, 5-10 minute increments when you can. So those are the big ones in terms of what I call the doing.
Awesome. Let's see. All right. So how can listeners start their own comeback journey and achieve their health and performance goals?
Yeah, just get started on the Rocky framework. I actually have, if you don't mind me sharing, I have a
Oh,
free.
you're about to get the matter of fact. You're about to get the solo screen and you get to plug away
Oh,
and let everybody
okay.
let them know.
So I was gonna say we were going right there. So yeah, to get started on your comeback journey, to get started on your comeback story, I have a free private podcast, and we do a deep dive into the Rocky framework. So you're going to get a step by step to how to create your own comeback experience. So the easy URL to remember is podcastholly.com. That's podcastholly.com. And so open for everyone. And also, if you are a woman in midlife and you're interested in connecting further, my podcast is called Your Midlife Comeback Story. You can listen on Apple, Spotify, or any of the other podcasts. And then I hang out on Instagram. So come over and say hello. It's at holly.bertone, Bertone, at holly.bertone, and come say hello over on Instagram.
Awesome. It's been wonderful having you on the show.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank
Yes.
you for being a wonderful guest. Hopefully people watch it and they're inspired to turn their life around and make their own comeback story, because it it's just amazing that like wait like I said when I was open, I'm like, how do you go from FBI, career in the FBI, to helping people through midlife crisis?
It makes sense now, doesn't it?
Yeah, now, yeah, after the whole conversation, yes. After we spoke about it, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But it's just an amazing story that people should hear and definitely hear about, and continue to do what you're doing, because you're doing some amazing stuff.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. But I appreciate you coming by. If you don't mind, don't leave just yet. I'm just gonna close out the show, and then we'll chat a little bit more, and then yeah, it's where we were live, so people hopefully catch the replay of the show. If they did, we had a few viewers stop by, so that's good. But yeah, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. And a couple of weeks, it'll be released on audio. Right now, we're YouTube. We stream to like 7 different platforms. We stream to 2 YouTube pages, LinkedIn, 2 Facebook pages, my Twitch channel, and I'm on a Roku channel called the BS3 Network, and they're based out of Houston. And so yeah, so hopefully we can make an impact with this episode, because I feel that it's a great story that people should hear.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, let me close out the story. But once again, thank you for being such a great guest. That's good. All right, everybody. Another great episode is in the books. If you haven't subscribed, shared, hit the notification bell, please do. Greatly appreciate it. Shout out to Bobby J, Brandy J. Love you guys. Shout out to the boss lady. Love you and appreciate everything you do for me. And as always, big shout out to all the essential workers out there. God bless y'all. Be safe. You know your boy Wise does it. Peace out.